Let's bring in now Congressman Brian Mast, Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for joining us. Your reaction to what we're seeing right now, Nicolas Maduro and his wife about to deboard that plane right here in New York.
Yeah, I would start with a thank you to President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth. Limited operation, conducted the mission, took into account all of the risks from what happens next to what were the threat to U.S. forces, law enforcement and military conducting this operation. You took the most strategic partner for China, for Russia, for Iran, for Cuba in all of Latin America that was directly operating in our backyard, and you severed that tie. You protected the homeland of the United States. Thank you to the president. Job well done.
Job well done. Chairman, President Trump elaborated on why he was a bit hesitant to inform Congress of the plan. Take a look at this.
If I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, you know. We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
Chairman, definitely don't want leakers. Do you agree with the president that leaking would have compromised this mission and that leaking was, in fact, a big concern here? Do you see it that way?
I know for a fact, I can't give you every detail, that the president is I don't want to say being bashful. He's being kind with his words right now. Very, very specific threats with this operation and very specific threats with previous operations to say it in a way that's more open source for most people. We recognize how there are Democrats around the country in office that are just looking for the opportunity to say, there's an ICE agent. Let's pull off their mask. Let's identify where their home is. Let's point out who their family is so that they can be targeted. That's just a tip of the iceberg example to say there are people in this government, lawmakers, looking to leak. It goes well beyond that in this particular circumstance, but I just use that to be analogous to it. Yes, there was very specific threats for leaking that were thwarted in advance of this operation.
Mr. Chairman, Rich Edson here. Thanks so much for joining us this evening on what an incredible day it's been. Do you get a sense that there is cooperation with the vice president in Venezuela, with the U.S. government right now, that a transition election, that the road forward there is complex or might be smoothed, or what's your sense of what's next?
There's an acknowledgement that everybody in place in the Venezuelan government was complicit with what was going on with Maduro. That is acknowledged, but that doesn't mean that it was more tactically wise to leave a vacuum in place there instead of keeping some people that knew where the keys were, knew how to turn on the lights. If they were willing to say, okay, we can keep the lines of communication open with the United States of America. We can make sure that who we are talking to is the U.S., not Cuba, not China, not Iran, not Russia, again, severing those ties that I spoke about before. And if you have that in place, then we can continue the conversation moving forward. Obviously, there are conversations surrounding Machado and Rodriguez and what will be the future. But I would give this, again, to be analogous. I was a bomb technician. We didn't go charging into minefields. We crawled in very carefully. And that's what's being looked at right here with this transition. Again, by tactical demand that they not go charging into the next partner, but move in very carefully.
Sir, thanks for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate a remarkable news day. I want to ask just if you could extend a little bit on that. What do we know about transition plans? The word run was used, but there wasn't a whole lot of clarity.
You know that the transition, any partner, not to repeat myself, but in part I will, it has to involve severing those ties with China, with Russia, with Iran, with North Korea, with Cuba, and not being the greatest destabilizing factor throughout all of Latin America and South America, but rather becoming what Venezuela could be for the Venezuelan people and for Latin America, which used to be this great hope. It's bringing them back to that place that they can become a great hope. And if we find the right partner to do that, they have a future. If somebody is the wrong partner, they do not have a future.
Congressman, you mentioned you were an EOD tech for which you were awarded the Bronze Star, Purple Heart in Afghanistan. And it makes me think, when we sort of step back at the big picture and look at the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan under the Biden administration, and now this unbelievable precision strike in the extraction force that was able to go in to such a difficult situation and pull it off seamlessly, it really paints a picture that is contrasting two different ways. Talk to me about your assessment as someone who has this military experience about this operation that was carried out and how it compares and contrasts to the previous administration.
Yeah, to say it at a high level, the compare and contrast is this. President Trump has never been the forever war president, right? He conducted a limited strike in Syria in the 45 administration. He laid forth the groundwork to get the United States of America out of Afghanistan under pre-met conditions. And of course, the Biden administration totally screwed that up. Then we move into the 47 administration. President Trump conducts a limited operation in Iran to make sure that no matter what Iran does, they cannot respond to anybody, including the United States, with anything measured in kilotons or megatons. Limited strike, no violation of war powers. And this is the exact same thing. Democrats have total egg on their face from previous operations saying we're going to be in these protracted long war operations that did not take place. Why? Because again, President Trump is not the protracted war president. He's the person that is going in there with any operation saying, number one, what is the mission that has to be accomplished? Number two, in trying to accomplish that mission, what is the risk to U.S. forces or potentially a protracted engagement, which he doesn't want to be in? Number three, what is the potential for outcome? Any other risk peripheral to that? What is the future in the days following that? He and his team are calculating every single one of these things. I know to a high level, speaking to Secretary Rubio and others, these are things that they've been thinking about for days, weeks, months. How do they calculate all of those things to do the right thing for defense of the homeland of the United States of America, protection of our forces in an inherently dangerous, extremely dangerous operation, and for the future of the Venezuelan people?
Yeah. Congressman Brian Mast, thank you very much for taking time and getting your insight there.
朋友们，你们学英语的时候，是不是经常有这样的困扰？单词背了就忘，就算记住了，放到句子里还是不会用。其实啊，学英语最重要的就是学习词源。就好比咱们了解一个人，知道他的成长背景、家庭环境，才能和他更好的相处。单词也一样，了解了他的前世今生，才能真正做到会用。想象一下，你在一个陌生的城市，只知道目的地的名字，却不了解它周边的环境和历史，那你可能就很难顺利到达。但要是你知道这个地方曾经发生过什么，有什么特别之处，是不是就更容易找到它，也能记得更牢呢？学习英语单词也是这个道理。今天我要给大家介绍一款超棒的学英语工具 AI Word， 它聚焦词源的追溯，你可以利用碎片时间阅读，收集那些陌生的单词，而且它借助豆包大模型追溯词源，还能根据你的喜好重新编排，把这些词汇融入到你熟悉而实际的生活场景中，就好像把一个个陌生的单词变成了你的好朋友，在生活里常常和他们碰面，慢慢的你就能真正掌握这些词汇，熟练应用了。大家不妨想想自己在学英语的过程中，有没有因为不了解词源而闹过笑话，或者遇到过困难呢？你们愿意试试用 AI Word 来学习英语吗？快来评论区和我分享吧。